to some developing news out of Mexico. One of the leaders of one of its most powerful drug cartels has been killed in a military operation. Nemesio Oseguero, commonly known as El Mencho.
Before dawn on a Sunday morning in a forested mountain town in western Mexico, the most powerful drug lord in the world made his last move. He had spent years avoiding this moment, bouncing between safe houses, rotating bodyguards, disappearing into the Sierra Madre like a ghost. No country home, no fixed address, no predictable pattern. He had outlasted presidents, outlasted rivals, outlasted every effort to find him. And then, finally, they found him. To understand why the death of Nemesio Oseguera Cervantes, known to the world as El Mencho, matters, you have to understand what he built. The Cartel Jalisco Nueva Generación, CJNG, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. It did not begin as what it became. In its early years, the organization presented itself publicly as the Matacetas, a vigilante force, they claimed, cleaning up Mexico's criminal underworld. It was a cover story, a PR move, and it did not last long. Under Mencho's leadership, beginning in 2012, CJNG transformed into something Mexico had not seen before. This was not a trafficking organization that happened to be violent. This was a military-style organization that used trafficking to fund its warfare. Homemade armored vehicles, rocket launchers, surveillance drones, military-grade weapons flowing into the hands of cartel enforcers. CJNG didn't just move drugs, it moved like an army. Security analyst Chris Dalby once described the CJNG model as conquest warfare. Eliminate resistance fast and let the fear do the work that bullets don't need to. It was a strategy built not just on violence, but on the spectacle of violence. Bodies left on public display, banners hung over bridges with names and warnings, roadblocks set ablaze in broad daylight, execution videos uploaded online. The message was never subtle. If you stand against us, this is what will happen to you. And at the center of it all was one man. Mencho did not project power from a mansion. He didn't appear in music videos or give interviews. What made him dangerous was precisely what made him hard to find. He was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. He was known to personally call police commanders. Leaked recordings surfaced of his voice, calm, controlled, telling officers to stand down, reminding them he knew their names, their families, their addresses. That wasn't bravado, that was infrastructure. CJNG under Mencho maintained power through three pillars: mobility, aggression, and fear. Not deep political alliances, fear. The kind that makes a police commander answer a phone call from a cartel boss and do exactly what he's told. And when El Chapo Guzman was extradited to the United States in 2017 and the Sinaloa cartel began its long fracture, Mencho moved fast. CJNG expanded into more than 20 Mexican states. Routes that Sinaloa once owned were taken over. Tactical alliances were formed. Drug corridors extended beyond North America, into Europe, into Asia. The financial backbone of the organization was reportedly supported by Los Queenies, a powerful allied faction that helped launder and distribute proceeds globally. By the early 2020s, U.S. law enforcement officials were calling CJNG one of the most dangerous transnational criminal organizations on the planet, and its leader remained free. For years, the hunt for Mencho followed a familiar playbook: informants, wiretaps, tips that went cold, operations that came close and didn't. He survived by never staying still, rotating compounds in the dense forested terrain of the Sierra Madre, surrounding himself with layers of loyal gunmen trained to engage, delay, and extract. His inner circle was tight. His communication patterns were deliberate. His movements left minimal trace. Every time law enforcement thought they had a line on him, the line went dead. But behind the scenes, a new approach was quietly taking shape, one that would change the equation entirely. In early 2025, the United States officially launched the Joint Interagency Task Force Counter-Cartel, known by its acronym JITF-C. This was not another federal task force with a new name. This was a military-led, multi-department intelligence operation built from the ground up, specifically designed to do something no prior effort had done at scale: map entire criminal ecosystems. Brigadier General Maurizio Calibrazzi, who leads the task force, drew a direct comparison to how the United States approached counterterrorism after September 11th, but he was careful to note the differences. Cartels, he explained, are not ideologically driven like Al-Qaeda or ISIS. They are profit-driven, decentralized, fluid. Their structures shift constantly. Leadership changes, alliances form and collapse, routes are abandoned and rebuilt. Traditional intelligence methods built for tracking terror networks had to be adapted. The goal of JITF-C was not just to identify a boss, it was to identify the entire system: the logistics operators, the money launderers, the chemical transporters, the route protectors. Because when you remove a kingpin without dismantling the infrastructure, the organization doesn't collapse, it reorganizes. U.S. officials estimate that true decision-making authority within Mexico's major cartels rests with only a few hundred individuals. But beneath that layer, the contractors, the facilitators, the support networks, estimates range from 200,000 to 250,000 people. That is not a gang. That is an economy. And when the U.S. government officially designated major Mexican cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, new tools became available to JITF-C: expanded intelligence sharing authorities, broader military support, and increased ISR capabilities: intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. Real-time tracking, cross-border data fusion, deep analysis of communication patterns, movement behavior, and network connections. For the first time, the full weight of America's counterterrorism-era intelligence infrastructure was being aimed not at a foreign militia in a distant desert, but at a cartel boss hiding in the mountains of western Mexico. Talpa de Allende, a small mountain town in the state of Jalisco, population roughly 12,000, known locally for its historic basilica, its artisanal crafts, and the dense forest that wraps around its edges. For Mencho, it was supposed to be a safe zone, a temporary refuge inside the Sierra Madre: hard terrain, loyal locals, thick cover, the kind of place that looks unremarkable from above. He used places like this before, and left before anyone arrived. This time, he didn't leave in time. The operation that would end Mencho's life began not in Talpa, but in months of intelligence work that preceded it. JITF-C had built what officials described as a detailed target package on Mencho. That package was the product of layered analysis: movement patterns, communication intercepts, inner circle mapping, and cross-reference surveillance data from both U.S. and Mexican sources. Mexico's Secretariat of National Defense, SEDENA, confirmed afterward that the tracking of Mencho's network drew on intelligence from U.S. institutions in addition to Mexican security cabinet agencies. The cooperation was real, and it was operational. When the target package was complete, when the picture was full enough, Mexican forces acted. Before dawn on Sunday, an operational force assembled outside of Talpa. It was not a small unit. 3 components moved in coordination: the ground element, drawn from the Joint Special Force, Army's Special Forces, and the Immediate Reaction Special Force of the National Guard; the air mobile element, 6 helicopters carrying additional Special Forces personnel positioned for air support and rapid extraction; and an intelligence overlay, real-time coordination from the task force network feeding information to commanders on the ground. The armed force encircled a wooded area on the edge of town, a cluster of cabins set among trees, remote enough to feel hidden, close enough to be accessed. The kind of place that looks unremarkable from above. They moved in carefully, quietly, in the dark. Then the cartel opened fire. What followed was not a quick arrest. It was a sustained, violent confrontation in the pre-dawn dark. Mencho's security detail, trained, armed, and expecting exactly this kind of threat, engaged the military immediately. A military helicopter took fire from below and was forced into an emergency landing. Inside the compound, authorities later recovered high-powered rifles and rocket launchers, weapons designed to destroy aircraft, the kind of firepower that made every helicopter in the air a target. But the launchers were never successfully used. Despite the intensity of the firefight, Mexican special forces pushed forward. They did not retreat, they did not wait. Mencho was found in the undergrowth, hiding, wounded, surrounded by members of his inner circle. Even then, the fight wasn't over. His remaining bodyguards opened fire on the closing Special Forces operatives. Both were wounded and taken into custody. Mencho himself had been struck. He was alive, but critically injured. A helicopter was requested for medical evacuation. He was loaded, along with his 2 wounded bodyguards and an injured military officer, and flown toward a medical facility in Jalisco. He did not make it. President Claudia Sheinbaum's government announced the operation as a historic victory, and in many ways, it was. But the victory was not without cost. In the hours and days that followed, 25 members of Mexican National Guard were killed in firefights directly linked to cartel retaliation. Their bodies were brought out of Guadalajara's forensic department as their colleagues stood in silence outside. 25 men, 25 families. The operation that ended Mencho did not happen in a vacuum. It happened inside a country still bleeding from cartel violence, and the bleeding did not stop when he fell. Within hours of the news breaking, CJNG cells launched coordinated revenge operations across Mexico. Highways blocked, vehicles set on fire, armed groups moving in waves across more than a dozen states. Not randomly, but in coordinated patterns. Estimates place the number of roadblocks above several hundred, spread across more than 20 states. This was not grief. This was a message. CJNG still exists. CJNG can reach you, and someone will answer for what happened in Talpa. The violence was designed to demonstrate organizational coherence even after decapitation, to show rivals, civilians, and the government alike that the removal of one man, even the man at the top, did not end the machine he built. Mexico has been here before. During the Calderón era, the mid-2000s to early 2010s, a government strategy centered on eliminating cartel leadership led to the deaths and arrests of dozens of kingpins, each one celebrated as a breakthrough, each one followed by a period of intense fragmentation and violence. When you cut off the head of an organization without dismantling the infrastructure, you don't end the organization. You create a succession crisis, and succession crises in criminal enterprises are fought with guns. Removing a CEO does not dissolve the company as long as the supply chains, the money, the people, the transporters, and the foot soldiers remain intact. U.S. officials estimate that the period following Mencho's death could last months, possibly years, as rivals test territory lines, smaller groups probe for weakness, and the question of who controls what gets answered the only way cartels answer questions. At the same time, attention is already shifting to the next name, Fausto Isidro Meza Flores, known as El Chapo Isidro. Not the famous Chapo, but a figure whose quiet rise has earned him a place on the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list, added in February 2025 by then-acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll. The State Department has placed a $5 million reward on his capture. A federal grand jury returned a superseding indictment against him in November 2019. The charges are serious. The reach is international. And yet, for years, he remained in the shadows. Analysts describe El Chapo Isidro as one of the quiet winners of the chaos that followed El Chapo Guzman's extradition and the subsequent internal warfare within the Sinaloa cartel. While others fought for position loudly, he consolidated his grip on the Guasave region of northern Sinaloa, carefully, deliberately, without the flashpoint moments that attract attention. No gold chains, no narco ballads, no public displays of power. Last year, he reportedly formed an alliance with Ismael El Mayo Zambada, combining his military strength with Zambada's established logistics networks across the Golden Triangle. It was a calculated move, expansion through